At my adopted daughter Madison's gorgeous wedding, I stood by the entrance clutching an envelope that carried a secret worth $60 million. Instead of welcoming me with open arms, Madison humiliated me in front of the whole crowd. She called me an embarrassment and ordered me to leave. What she didn't realize was that I had spent my entire life saving so I could give her that fortune. Months later, when Madison's picture-perfect marriage collapsed and she ended up abandoned, pregnant, and broken, she wound up at my doorstep, the same woman who had once thrown me out. What she found was mercy, but it came with conditions she never could have imagined. Now, before I go further, if this is your first time listening, I'd love for you to hit that subscribe button. Your support means everything. It helps me keep sharing stories like this one. Stick around until the very end, and if this story touches you, drop a comment and pass it along to a friend. The alley smelled of damp cardboard and yesterday's rain. A cold wind swept through, carrying the faint hum of traffic from the main road. Beneath a flickering street lamp, I stopped mid-step on my way home after another long shift. My shoes were falling apart, my back ached, but it wasn't the pain that made me freeze. It was the sound, a soft, muffled cry drifting out of the shadows. I squinted and saw it. A bundle of rags pressed against the wall, moving just enough to catch my breath. Kneeling down, my hands shook as I pulled back a thin cloth. A tiny face appeared, pale as porcelain, streaked with tears. A baby. Alone. Abandoned. For a second, I couldn't move, the weight of that choice pressing down on me. I had nothing, barely enough to survive myself. People walked past on the other side of the street. A few glanced over, most ignored it. And I whispered to myself, if I walk away, she won't survive the night. So I didn't. I scooped her into my arms, and as soon as she felt my warmth, her sobs quieted. I named her Madison, because I told myself one day this child would be my clear purpose in life. The years that followed were brutal. I worked cleaning offices during the day and spent evenings taking care of the elderly. My hands stayed raw from bleach, my back stiff from lifting, and every dollar I earned vanished into formula, tiny shoes, and school supplies. Neighbors gossiped from their porches. She's not even her real kid. She's crazy for raising somebody else's baby. I heard it all. Sometimes folks even shouted it straight to my face while I held Madison's hand. But I never answered with anger. Instead, I lifted my chin higher, squeezed her hand tighter, and just kept walking. When she needed glasses, I skipped meals to buy them. When she begged for piano lessons, I sold my wedding ring. When she wanted new shoes for a school dance, I pulled 3 straight night shifts to make it happen. Every sacrifice, I told myself, was worth it. Each one gave my daughter a brighter chance. What no one knew was that, quietly, I was also saving. Each paycheck, no matter how small, I put a little aside. I taught myself how to read financial papers, studied investment brochures during lunch breaks, asked quiet questions at the bank. Pennies turned into dollars. Dollars grew into accounts and portfolios. By the time Madison was grown, my hidden savings had swelled into something unbelievable, $60 million. My plan was simple. On her wedding day, I would finally tell her. It would be my gift, her future secured. For now, I kept it secret, smiling at my daughter with tired pride, believing that every sacrifice had led to this one perfect moment. The wedding venue looked like a glass cathedral, sleek chrome lines and white roses perfuming the warm afternoon air. Soft music floated from hidden speakers. A valet opened doors for black SUVs, guests stepping out in gowns and pressed suits. I paused at the curb, smoothing the wrinkles on my thrifted dress, the envelope pressed under my palm like a heartbeat. Inside, golden light spilled across polished marble floors. Staff whispered into their headsets while a wedding planner waved a clipboard around. The champagne tower sparkled against the ceiling lights. I walked carefully along the red runner, hugging the edge so I wouldn't be in anyone's way. My shoes tapped quietly, almost hesitant. I caught the scents of lilies, polished wood, and a faint citrus from someone's cologne. A woman in a sequin dress glanced over her shoulder. "Who's that?" I heard her ask. "Not sure," a man muttered back. "Maybe a vendor? Some distant relative?" Their voices faded into the strings of a string quartet. At the check-in stand, a young guy in a tux scrolled through a tablet, smiling the kind of smile you could tell was rehearsed. "Name, please." "Linda Brooks," I said softly. His finger slid, paused, then slid again. A tiny frown crossed his face. The planner leaned over, tasting the name like it didn't fit. "Do you mean Linda? Vendor? Florist maybe?" she asked, her headset crackling in her ear. "I'm the mother," I whispered back, clutching the envelope a little tighter. I raised it just an inch, then lowered it again, like it might scare someone. The planner's smile stiffened. "One moment, ma'am," she said into her mic, tilting her head. Another staffer rushed over, the tablet refreshed. Guests pressed impatiently behind me, their perfume and cologne rising like heat. "Careful on the carpet," a videographer said as he nudged me a step aside. "The bride's about to walk through." He wasn't rude, just busy. I exhaled, my fingers tracing the edge of the envelope. I breathed slow, the way I learned on long overnight shifts. The tablet guy cleared his throat. "I'm not finding your name here." "We can check again if you'd like," he said gently. Two bridesmaids floated over, satin dresses shimmering under the lights. "Is she lost?" one whispered. "Press maybe." The other guessed. "She doesn't have a badge, though." And then I saw her, Madison. Her hair perfectly glossed, her pearl veil pinned just right, makeup sharp under the spotlights. For a second, our eyes locked. And in that second, I saw everything flash back, the alley, the homework nights, the chipped dinner plates. My lips almost curved into a smile. Madison blinked once. Her jaw tightened. She didn't look at the envelope. She looked at my shoes, my frayed purse strap, my thrift store dress. "We talked about this," she said low and quick, glancing at the planner, then the circling cameras. Her hands smoothed her gown, a polished but nervous move. "You weren't supposed to come." "I just wanted to say congratulations," I whispered. Behind us, her new husband's friends laughed at something off camera. A groomsman noticed the tension, nudged his buddy. "Who's she?" he asked. "Not on the list," the other replied, already losing interest. "PR's gonna lose it." "Please," Madison said, her voice almost stretched into a smile. "This is supposed to be a brand day. Guests are uncomfortable. I can't have this." She didn't finish the sentence, she didn't have to. A bored-looking security guard stepped close enough that his shadow covered me. The planner gave me a gentle out. "We can escort you to the public terrace, if you'd like to watch the procession from there." For a moment, my body swayed like a branch in the wind. Then I steadied myself. I nodded once, a small nod. No tears, not yet. The envelope pressed into my palm, its edges carving into my skin. One of the bridesmaids tried to soften the blow with a shrug. "Nothing personal," she said, forcing a smile. "It's just, you know, capacity limits." Her eyes slid away before she even finished. I turned. Suddenly the world was all texture, the cool glass wall, the steady hum of air conditioning, the clean eucalyptus bite from the floral arrangements. Someone brushed past me, muttering, "Sorry," without looking. Another guest whispered, awkward, under his breath, like it was the weather. At the revolving doors, an older waiter stepped aside for me. He caught my eyes and gave the smallest nod, a thread of respect tangled with pity. "Take care, ma'am," he murmured. The kindness cut deeper than the cruelty. Outside, the city heat wrapped around me. Traffic sighed, and a breeze caught the veil of a woman hurrying in, it fluttered across my wrist like a ghost of lace. I adjusted my sleeve, checked the envelope, still there, still heavy, and walked down the steps, one slow, careful step at a time. At the curb, I heard a couple whispering behind me. Did she crash the wedding? Maybe some relative they don't talk about. Happens. I didn't turn around. I just kept walking until I reached the bus stop. I sat on the cold metal bench and laid the envelope across my knees. The city moved on around me, indifferent. In the glass panel beside me, I caught my own faint reflection, lined face, steady eyes, and I let out one long breath. Not broken. Not yet. When the bus finally arrived, I stood slowly, pressed the envelope to my chest, and climbed aboard. Each step felt deliberate, quiet. No scene, no fuss. Just a woman carrying a gift the world wasn't ready to see. That ride home blurred past me in a haze of neon signs and the low hum of the engine. I sat pressed against the window, watching my reflection ripple with every bump. The envelope stayed in my lap, its corners damp from the sweat of my palm. I had dreamed of handing it to Madison, imagined her face softening in shock and gratitude. Instead, the paper now felt heavier than bricks. My little house greeted me with silence. The clock ticked, the fridge hummed. I set the envelope on the kitchen table and stared at it. For hours, I just sat there, my hands clasped, my eyes red but dry. Finally, I whispered, almost to myself, if she doesn't want me, then this gift isn't hers anymore. Days bled into weeks. The sting of humiliation cooled, replaced with something sharper, clarity. One morning, I rose with a decision carved deep in my chest. I took the envelope to the bank and began shifting the money, not to Madison, but into something greater. That's how the Madison House Foundation was born. I didn't name it out of bitterness, but as a reminder of the baby I had once found in an alley. It started small, a rented building, 6 cots, a battered soup pot simmering on a second-hand stove. But word spread. Donations trickled in. Volunteers showed up. Within months, shelters began opening across the city. Kids who once slept under bridges now had beds, books, and a shot at something better. I became a quiet force of hope, respected in ways money alone could never buy. My name began to circulate in whispers. At church, women leaned into each other. Did you hear? Ms. Brooks bought that old building and turned it into a school. Impossible on a cleaner's wage. She's smarter than she lets on. I always knew it. While I was building, Madison's world was falling apart. The glossy wedding photos still floated around on social media, but behind them the cracks were spreading. Andrew's charm soured as soon as the cameras were gone. He checked her phone, yelled at her over small mistakes, criticized her cooking, even the way she laughed. By the 3rd month, bruises faintly showed under her makeup. By the 4th, he was disappearing at night, coming back with perfume that wasn't hers. At 5 months, paparazzi caught him in a car with another woman. Madison smiled for the cameras the next day, but on her live stream, her hand shook. By 6 months pregnant, everything exploded. Andrew accused her of cheating, his words cutting like knives, his hands slamming doors. Finally, he ordered her out. The mansion gates clicked shut behind her. She stood in the cold, suitcase in one hand, the other resting on her swollen belly. Neighbors whispered through their hedges. Isn't that the influencer's wife? Yeah. He kicked her out. And she's pregnant. Madison kept walking, each step heavier than the last, her mind circling one thought, sharp and relentless: there's only one place left to go. I was giving a tour to a group of donors at the foundation when I saw her standing by the gates. Madison. Her hair a mess, makeup streaked from tears, both arms cradling her belly. For a long moment, I didn't move. I just looked at her. Her lips trembled as she whispered across the distance. Mom. I'm sorry. Please. I need you. The world seemed to stop. The years between us hung heavy in the silence. I heard volunteers whisper nearby. Is that her daughter? The one who threw her out at the wedding? What's she doing here now? Even the air felt like it was holding its breath. My face softened, but behind my eyes was something steadier. Love was still there, but the days of blind sacrifice were gone. The gates of the foundation creaked open, and Madison stepped inside, each step cautious, like the ground itself might reject her. Her dress was wrinkled, her suitcase dragged along the gravel. The baby in her belly shifted, a weight she now carried alone. Conversations around us fell quiet as eyes followed the same young woman who had once turned her back on me in front of the world. I walked forward slowly, every line of my body showing the years of sacrifice I'd lived. I stopped just a few feet from her. The silence between us pressed like a stone wall. Madison broke first. Her voice cracked. Mom. I don't have anywhere else to go. Andrew said I cheated. He threw me out. Please, I was wrong. I never should have treated you like I did at the wedding. Her words tangled into sobs, her shoulders shaking as she dropped to her knees on the stone path. Some of the staff respectfully turned away, others whispered just loud enough. After everything she did to that woman, life comes back around, doesn't it? I let their words hang in the air. Then I crouched, my hand hovering before resting gently on Madison's shoulder. My voice came out calm, measured, like a verdict. You can move in, I said softly, but not in my house. You'll stay in the guest home. You'll work at the orphanage. You'll earn every penny, not because I don't love you, but because love without discipline blinds us. Through her tears, Madison nodded. She didn't fight, didn't argue. She accepted those terms like someone grabbing a rope in deep water. Weeks passed, and people began to notice. The once glamorous influencer's wife now wore plain uniforms, serving meals to abandoned kids, mopping floors, folding blankets late at night. At first, some snickered. Isn't that the girl from the wedding? But little by little, the whispers changed. Folks saw her kneel to tie a child's shoe, or stay late to read bedtime stories with her hand resting on her pregnant stomach. I watched from the sidelines, not with cruelty, but with a mother's quiet resolve. I had once given her everything, my sacrifice, my love, even my fortune. But this time, I was giving her something different, the chance to rebuild herself through humility, through work, through grace. The day her child was born, I stood outside the hospital room. I listened as that baby let out its first cry. I closed my eyes, and a long breath left me. Life had come full circle. The daughter who once cast me aside was now the one seeking shelter under my roof. And for Madison, this was just the beginning. Because sometimes the greatest gift isn't money, or mansions, or fame. Sometimes the greatest gift is a second chance, to grow, even if it starts from the guest house. Life has its own way of righting justice. I had given my heart, my years, and my fortune, only to be humiliated by the one I loved most. But instead of bitterness, I chose purpose. And when Madison's world collapsed, the mother she rejected became her only refuge. It's proof that betrayal can wound you, but it doesn't have to define you. True power isn't revenge, it's the strength to forgive, while still teaching the lesson that must be learned. Now I'll ask you, would you have let Madison back in, or left her to face the cold world she once forced on me? Tell me in the comments, and don't forget, there are more stories like this waiting. Subscribe so you don't miss the next twist life has in store.